Hello and welcome to Iftikhar Talks. I am Dr. Iftikhar. Dear viewers, the unfortunate incidents of implosion of Titan submersible on 18th of June failed to break the human courage. And yesterday, on 29th of June, 6 people on board Virgin Galactic's first commercial flight, Galactic 1, successfully completed their space trip, opening the new frontiers of space tourism and safely came back. This is an example of extreme tourism, where man on one hand wants to go to the bottom of the seas, touch the bottom, but probably more than that wants to see the space, go to the planets and the galaxies. On 12th of April 1961, Yuri Gagarin of Russia became the first person to go into the space. But please consider that out of nearly 4 billion population of the world today, only just over 600 people from 44 different countries have had the honor of visiting space. And even a great majority of them made this journey for the purpose of development and research of science and technology. However, on 28th of April 2001, an American businessman and an aeronautical engineer by himself, Dennis Tito, was the first person who went into space as a paid tourist. He was 60 at that time. An American company, Space Adventures, sent Tito on this trip aboard Russian spaceship called Soyuz from a base in Kazakhstan for a whopping $20 million at that time. In this trip, Tito not only went into space, but he also had the opportunity to go to International Space Station, and he spent 1 week there. The International Space Station is orbiting the Earth about 250 miles above the surface of the Earth. Since then, space tourism is an actual reality. And now many private companies are offering many different types of space tours and adventures at a cost varying from $400,000 to $3 million per person per trip. This large difference between the prices because they offer very different types of space experiences. Well, to understand these differences, we must need first to understand and know where the space actually starts. Well, you know that our Earth is enveloped in an envelope of air. This is called atmosphere. As we go higher and higher in the atmosphere, the air becomes thinner and thinner. So much so that at a certain altitude, air becomes so thin and so deficient that it becomes almost negligible, and the resistance almost finishes, which means that atmosphere finishes and space starts. But exactly where this transition becomes complete is very controversial. According to FAI, which is International Aeronautical Federation, space starts at 100 kilometer altitude, which is 62 miles above the sea level. This is known as Kármán line. But if you ask NASA or US Air Force, they say that space starts at 50-mile altitude. This is because after 50 miles, atmosphere is so thin that air friction becomes almost negligible. And above this altitude, a spacecraft can fly at a speed of 17,000 miles per hour without getting burned due to friction of the air. And this is the speed that an aircraft has to maintain if it wants to continue orbiting the Earth without having to fall into the Earth. Just like a motorbike that you might have seen, which is going around in the well of death in a fairground. You see the motorcycle is going at a certain speed, and if the speed is not as high as that, it will just fall down. This is why most authorities now consider 50-mile altitude as a transition line from atmosphere to space instead of the Kármán line. Now, having understood where the space starts, we can talk about broadly 6 different types of space travel that various space tourism companies are offering at a greatly varying prices. The first and the foremost, the simplest and the shortest of these is suborbital flights. This is a round trip in which the aircraft goes up beyond the 50-mile line into the space remains in the space for a very short time, maybe for a few minutes, and then comes back. These flights are usually 90 minutes in all, and the passengers get the honor badge of being an astronaut. They experience few minutes in the space and they experience the weightlessness there. They get to see the Earth from a very excellent vantage point at a very high point, and they may have the opportunity to see the edge of the curvature of the Earth as well. And all this at just $450,000. Right. Now the second type of space travel that is on the offer are called orbital flights. In these flights, the spacecraft goes much higher than 50-mile mark. They usually go as high as 150 to 500 miles high. The spacecraft then orbits the Earth at a speed of 17,000 miles per hour, so that it is orbiting like any other satellite till it consumes all the fuel that it contains before it returns back to the Earth. These type of trips usually are of 2 to 3 day duration. In this trip, because the spacecraft completes one circle around the Earth within 90 minutes, so anybody aboard this spacecraft will get to see 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets in any 24-hour period. That's amazing. Now the third type of trip that is on the offer are orbital flights that I mentioned just before now, along with stay at International Space Station. But this is a type of trip that Dennis Tito took in 2001. And then the Japanese fashion tycoon Yusaku Misawa also in December 2021 went on a very similar trip, and they paid for it $20 and $30 million respectively. In both cases, their spacecraft, which was a Russian Soyuz, took them from, flew them from a base in Kazakhstan and took them to International Space Station 250 miles above the Earth, where they spent 1 week each before coming back to Earth. The fourth type of space adventure that is on the offer is PERI-LUNAR travel. In this type of space tour, the spacecraft travels to the moon itself, which is 240,000 miles away. But instead of landing on the moon, the spacecraft goes around the moon in such a way that at one time it is only 124 miles away from the moon. So it gets really, really close to the moon. Moon is so far from Earth that it takes about 3 days to just get there. Therefore, this trip too is about of a week's duration. Right, now the fifth type of space travel that is on the offer is lunar landing, that is actually setting foot on the moon. Now as you know that since 1974 no man has been back to the moon, but SpaceX is determined to once again take humans to moon on their brand new spaceship called Starship. Their first flight to moon is expected to take NASA astronauts to moon in 2025-26. This is known as Project Artemis 3. Now at number 6, there is a futuristic space travel on the offer by SpaceX. Now although SpaceX's initial aims are to first of all fulfill their contract with Yusaku Misawa and Dennis Tito to take them on a PERI-LUNAR trip, and then lunar landing for NASA scientists, that is Artemis 3 mission, but they are designing their new spacecraft, that is Starship, in such a way that it should be able to take passengers confidently and safely to the moon and then onto the Mars and back safely back to the Earth again. And this is not all dream. A lot of this has already been achieved and the rest is in the pipeline. Now, although 11 countries across the globe have the capability to launch their spaceships into the space, but only Russia, USA and China has ever sent human beings on their spaceships. And Russia and USA have also taken people from other countries on their spaceship to the space. But all these space agencies basically send people to space for the purpose of science and research. But space travel for the purpose of tourism itself could not become a reality till some private companies started to take interest in the space tourism. Well, currently at least 4 large companies are promoting and offering space tourism with their own programs at varying costs. Out of these, the oldest is Virginia, USA based Space Adventure, founded by Eric Anderson in 1998. They also have an office in Moscow for very good reasons that you will see in a minute. Space Adventure neither builds spacecrafts nor they have any space program of their own. What they do is that for their clients, they collaborate with various agencies which are already running very successful space programs. Space Adventure has very strong ties with Russian space agency called Roscosmos, which not only has very vast experience of launching humans into space aboard their Soyuz rockets, but they also own International Space Station jointly with NASA, European Space Agency, Canadian Space Agency and Japanese Space Agency called JAXA. International Space Station was launched in 1998 and since then is continuously orbiting around the Earth at an altitude of about 250 miles. This is a football field sized space station which is designed to accommodate 6 to 7 persons at a time. However, at one time 13 people too have sort of stayed at it simultaneously. Up till now, some 269 travelers from 21 different countries have stayed at International Space Station at one time or another. Due to this very strong relationship of Space Adventure with Roscosmos and International Space Station, the company could send Dennis T2 to space and then to stay at International Space Station in 2001. Space Adventure has successfully arranged space tours for 7 tourists up till now. The latest being that of Yusaku Mizawa, which was in December 2021. That was a very interesting trip and that was a field's day for the social media because Mizawa entertained the whole social media when he tried to use toothpaste and tried to make a cup of tea in the weightlessness of space. So that was great fun. Actually, everybody enjoyed that. Currently, Space Adventure is offering many types of space tours and their details can be found on their websites. But unlike Space Adventure, the other 3 companies offering space tourisms have their own spacecrafts as well as their own space programs. Out of these 3, the first company, Blue Origin, was founded in September 2000 by Jeff Bezos of Amazon.com. The second was SpaceX, which came into being in May 2002 and by Elon Musk of Tesla car companies and PayPal. And lastly, Virgin Galactic was founded in 2004 by English billionaire Sir Richard Branson. Out of these 3, Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic are offering only suborbital flights, like the one that took place yesterday. Blue Origin's newest spacecraft is called New Shepard, which is actually an oval-shaped capsule which is propelled by rockets into the space vertically and comes back to the Earth in the same way. But as against that, Virgin Galactic spaceship is called VSS Unity and is designed like an aeroplane. USS Unity is carried to an altitude of 50,000 feet by a very large mothership called VMS Eve, which is actually made up of 2 aircrafts joined together by central wing, and the VSS Unity sits just underneath the central joint wing. The mothership is piloted by 2 pilots. When the mothership achieves the altitude of 50,000 feet, VSS Unity then separates itself from the mothership, falls down basically, and then fires its own rocket to complete its ascent to the space.
3, 2, 1, release, release, release. Fire, fire.
On the way back, it glides down to the Earth and then lands just like a normal aeroplane. A very interesting fact actually about these 2 companies that the owners of both these 2 companies have themselves too taken space trips aboard their own spacecrafts. Richard Branson of Virgin Galactic traveled to space up to an altitude of 53.5 miles aboard the spaceship VSS Unity on 11th of July 2021.
Welcome to Space, Unity 22.
To all you kids down there, I was once a child with a dream, looking up to the stars. Now I'm an adult in a spaceship with lots of other wonderful adults looking down to our beautiful, beautiful Earth. To the next generation of dreamers, if we can do this, just imagine what you can do. Yay!
Jeff Bezos of Blue Origin actually went to a height of 66.5 miles on his space capsule New Shepard on 20th of July 2021.
And New Shepard has cleared the tower on our way to space with our first human crew.
It felt so normal.
And touchdown. Welcome back, New Shepard's first human crew.
Well, to the great player of media, actor William Shatner, who played actually Captain James Kirk, you must remember in Star Trek series, also took a space flight in Blue Origin's New Shepard capsule on 13th of October 2021. He was 90 at that time, which means he holds a record of being the eldest space traveler so far.
And capsule touchdown. Welcome back, the newest astronauts. Audrey Powers, William Shatner, our customers, Glenn DeVries, and Chris Boshausen. There's Audrey Powers, a big hug from her sister.
Captain Kirk himself, the great William Shatner.
Well, as against them, Elon Musk, who is the owner of SpaceX, has yet to travel to the space. However, SpaceX is developing very large and very powerful aircraft which is called Starship. Their declared aim is to take man again to the moon and from there on to the Mars. SpaceX so far has already launched many successful human flights into the space, and the spacecraft that are built by SpaceX, they don't just go to 50 or 60 mile height or even 100-mile height for a suborbital trip. They actually go beyond 150 miles right into the lower Earth orbit, where International Space Station and many other satellites are already orbiting. Their latest flight was Inspiration 4, which took 4 passengers to 364 miles above the Earth, and they remained there for 3 days in space. Space tourism is now a solid reality. Virgin Galactic's yesterday's first commercial flight, Galactic 1, carrying 6 people on board, have already been to the space and back on Earth safely.
Amazing. And viva la Italia! This is 100 years for the Italian Air Force. So happy centennial to the Air Force. This is absolutely incredible. And welcome to space, astronauts. How absolutely incredible.
Virgin Galactic has already sold 800 such suborbital flight tickets at a rate of varying from $200,000 to $450,000 each. And I can tell you Blue Origin is not much behind. Also interesting is the fact that world's first space tourist, Dennis Tito, who is 83 now, has already signed a contract with SpaceX at an undetermined cost though, that when SpaceX new generation spacecraft Starships becomes ready at the end of 2025, Dennis along with his 57-year-old wife Akiko will go on a PERI-LUNAR trip on their spanking new Starship. In this trip, the Starship will, although not land on the moon, but they will go around the moon in such a way and that they will come so close to the moon that at one stage there will be only 124 miles between them. Mind it, moon is 240,000 miles from the Earth. A similar SpaceX flight has already been booked by Yosuke Maezawa, on which he plans to take 7 artists from all around the world with him. This project is called Dear Moon, and media is really looking forward to it, and so are we. Now talking about moon, Neil Armstrong was the first person to set foot on moon on 20th of July 1969. He was aboard Apollo 11.
I'm going to step off the limb. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Oh, that looks beautiful to me. It has a stark beauty all its own.
Well, up till now, only 24 people have ever traveled to the moon, and only 12 have set foot actually on the moon. The last human footprint on the moon was on 14 December 1974. Since then, no man has again gone to the moon. Now, NASA has signed a $2.9 billion project with SpaceX, according to which SpaceX will take NASA scientists to moon in December 2025 or at the latest in 2026 aboard the new spacecraft, which is called Starship. This is named as Project Artemis 3. Now, unfortunately, in this context, that their first unmanned test flight of Starship burst into flame within 4 minutes of the flight on 20th of April this year.
Yeah, it does appear to be spinning, but I do want to remind everyone that everything after clearing the tower was icing on the cake.
But both Elon Musk and SpaceX are confident that they will soon perfect their Starship. And after Moon, the next destination will be Mars. Elon Musk and SpaceX call this setback a successful failure, which they think will help them redouble their efforts to achieve their goal, which is man on Mars. Well, up till now, only Russia and China have successfully landed their spacecrafts on the surface of Mars.
Skycrane maneuver has started. About 20 meters off the surface.
We're getting signals from MRO. Tango Delta.
Touchdown confirmed. Perseverance safely on the surface of Mars, ready to begin seeking the signs of past life.
But no man has yet been sent to Mars, but not for very long now. Mars, wait for us. Man will soon set his foot on your surface for its onward journey to the galaxies further on. Well, happy space travel. Let's start packing. So dear viewers, if you found this video interesting, please like it and subscribe to our channel Iftikhar Talks. And don't forget to press the bell icon. Look after yourself and look after the whole universe around you. May Allah be with us all. Bye for now.